All right, ladies and gentlemen, so can we just take a quick second to applaud Bungie for their amazing work on the world drop weapons in Witch Queen? I mean, like, seriously, just a round of applause. Like, I've already made videos on 2 other insanely good world drop weapons, and here I am with a 3rd world drop weapon that's literally best in class. So, I mean, just GG Bungie, you all did a fantastic job. Now, you probably already know by the title, but in this video, we're going to be taking a look at Palmyra, the best perks, aka the God Roll, that you want, why this rocket is one of, if not the best rockets in the game, and finally, how to properly deal damage with it, aka how to weapon swap. So, you can always be dishing out insane amounts of damage. But before we get started, real quick, if you're new, and only if you enjoy my videos or find them useful, then feel free to subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Okay, let's get into this rocket. So first up, Palmyra is a 15 RPM Hake precision frame Stasis Rocket launcher. Stats on screen now. It is acquired via world drop, so you kind of just gotta hope and pray one drops for you, but it is also craftable. So if you head on over to the patterns and catalyst tab on your Triumph's page, you can see how many patterns you need to be able to craft this. I believe it's only 1 pattern, as it was the first craftable weapon I unlocked, so I can't really remember, outside of the glaive, of course, but I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's only 1. Nonetheless, once you do unlock the pattern, you'll no longer need to be on the lookout for it, as you'll just be able to craft the God Roll. Speaking of crafting and the God Roll, let's talk about it. First is the origin perk. It's the Hake Breach Armaments, which is going to increase the weapon's damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. To be honest, it's not really that good of a perk. Next, we have the frame. Get the handling frame, all right? This weapon is stupid good for DPS and damage when you're weapon swapping, so faster handling, you can whip it out faster, yada, yada, yada. Now for the perk columns. In column 1, you have 7 options. Volatile launch, confined launch, counter mass, hard launch, linear compensator, quick launch, and smart drift control. When it comes to this column, you're gonna want velocity and handling. Velocity to increase the speed at which your rockets travel, and handling because, well, for the same reason that you want handling on the frame. Faster swaps, baby. Now, there are different options in this column that provide both handling and velocity, but because this weapon is craftable, just go with the best one, aka quick launch, as it provides the highest stat bumps for both. Also wanted to mention, and I know this contradicts what I literally just said, but you actually might not want velocity if and only if you can't hit your shots. Velocity equals more DPS, but it doesn't matter if you can't land any shot. If you find yourself missing a lot of rockets, decrease the velocity. This will improve the tracking of this rocket. Next up, column 2, where you have 5 options: alloy casing, black powder, high velocity rounds, implosion rounds, and impact casing. Now, I know I've been saying that you want handling and velocity, but this column does offer a damage buff. Impact casing is going to increase the impact damage of this rocket by 10%, and because this rocket tracks, you're almost always going to hit the target you're aiming at. Now, while the impact damage is not a lot, it's still worth running because a boost to damage is always good. Plus, compared to everything else in column 2, impact casing, well, it just provides the best benefit. Next up for column 3, you got 6 perks: Impulse Amplifier, Unrelenting, Surplus, Ensemble, Autoloading Holster, and Ambitious Assassin. Now this column and column 4 is where like the most controversy kind of starts with this weapon, whether the best perk is Autoloading Holster or Impulse Amplifier. Some people believe that Impulse Amplifier is better because technically in like pure DPS, it can outdo Autoloading Holster, but this is not a pure DPS rocket. Palmyra is a rocket that should be swapped / paired with something like Izanagi's Burden. With that being said, autoloading is going to be the best perk in this column to aid you in swapping. Now, the next question is whether enhanced autoloading is worth it. To be honest, it really isn't when you're actually dealing damage, and by that I mean like in like a real world scenario, not just on like paper, but I mean it's still nice to have. Enhanced autoloading holster speeds up the autoload by about 0.2 seconds, so from 2.5 to 2.3. If you're firing the rocket, then blindly firing Izzy's, reloading it, and immediately swapping back to the rocket with normal autoloading, yeah, it won't be reloaded. Like, you'll actually have to do the reload. But when you put it into a real world scenario where once you switch to Izzy's, you have to ADS, aim, then fire, reload, and switch back, it will be reloaded. And I know some people will say, well, what about div? Because that way you don't need to aim for like the head or something. Plus div creates a massive crit spot, so it just makes aiming even easier. You can essentially quick scope with your Izanagis. And just overall, it cuts down the time spent with the sniper out. And yes, you're right. If you're in that situation, you might switch to your rocket and it not be fully reloaded. This is why I think you should 100% get enhanced autoloading, but if you're you're low on crafting materials and you're thinking that you'll just wait until you have the materials to get the enhanced version to craft the gun, don't. Go ahead and craft it, then just get the enhanced version later. And finally, column 4, where you'll find 6 perks. Adrenaline Junkie, Lasting Impression, Frenzy, Chain Reaction, Chill Clip, not to be confused with Kill Clip, and Explosive Light. Now, despite there being multiple damage perks and all around a pretty stacked column, you only really have 2 options that you should go with: Explosive Light or Lasting Impression. Now, the whole lasting versus explosive is a very weird and confusing debate, all right? I'm gonna try to simplify it as best I can. Lasting Impression sticks to the enemy / surface and has a 3-second delayed detonation, but deals an additional 20% damage. Explosive Light enables you to pick up orbs of power, and although you're capped at 6, and for each stack, 1 rocket equals 1 stack. Your rockets will do 25% more damage. So for every rocket you fire, it uses one of those stacks of Explosive Light. So at the max stack, you have 6 rockets doing 25% more damage. So when it comes to a single rocket, Explosive Light is going to do more damage, around 35,713, versus Lasting Impression, which is around 34,120, because, well, 25% increase versus a 20% increase. It's actually technically like a 4.7, like somewhere around 4.6 to 4.7, but we're just gonna say 5. Now, of course, we can't talk damage on a rocket without taking into account Wolfpack rounds on Galley. As you know, Galley gives every rocket on your team Wolfpack rounds, and the damage perk on your rocket should increase the explosion damage of the Wolfpack round. So not only is your rocket damage getting buffed, but the Wolfpack rounds coming off the rocket, thanks to the Galley person on your team, is also getting buffed. But it doesn't for Explosive Light. So lasting is dealing less damage per rocket than explosive, but it makes up for it when Wolfpack rounds come into play, because Explosive Light isn't giving extra damage to the Wolfpack rounds. So with Wolfpack rounds on Lasting Impression and Explosive Light, Lasting Impression is doing around 46,761 versus Explosive Light doing around 44,596. And I'm just going to be upfront and say that it's very hard to get an accurate reading on Wolfpack rounds, as it's very unlikely that all of them are going to hit. Now, even though Lasting Impression is dealing more damage than Explosive Light with Galley, the biggest problem with Lasting Impression is the delayed detonation. It takes almost 3 seconds for the rocket to detonate. And when it comes to instant DPS, so like very tight damage windows and you need to do damage like right then and there, or any sort of damage that doesn't involve Galley, Explosive Light is what you're gonna want. But hey, if you have all the time in the world and you have a Galley person and all that, then yeah, sure, Lasting Impression does technically do more damage. Now, another argument people are making, and this is without the buff from Wolfpack rounds or Galley, is after those 6 rockets, Explosive Light starts doing less damage than lasting. With double rocket reserves, Palmyra holds 9 rockets. So the last 3 rockets of the Explosive Light roll deals less damage. Over the course of 9 rockets, the total damage output of Lasting Impression is going to be higher than Explosive Light, because you only have 6 rockets with Explosive Light. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, more damage is better, so let's just go with lasting. Right now, lasting is sounding pretty good. And well, it's not that simple. Explosive Light can still out damage lasting if you're able to pick up orbs for those last 3 rockets. And well, what are you doing when you or your team is doing boss damage? That's right, you're popping your supers. And what do supers do? Well, they create orbs of power. Explosive Light is the better perk for shorter timed damage phases, because it has no delay, so you get instant damage. You don't run the risk of having your rocket stick to a boss or an enemy or whatever you're aiming at, waiting for it to go off, and then it goes off after the boss is immune or something. And it can enable you, and this is a pretty big one if you don't know this, it can enable you to pick up orbs even after your super is full, which is kind of crazy for the new Devour fragment. And I know you can run mods for that, but this way you don't have to dedicate a mod to it. All around, and I was gonna say all around, I recommend Explosive Light, but I don't. I really recommend both. I think you should honestly craft both. I know, dude, craziest anime betrayals right here. I really think you should craft both, because both perks are so situational. Like I said, if you don't have Galley, if you're doing DPS and you need instant damage, like right then, right there, you don't have time to wait for your Lasting Impression rocket to go off, then run Explosive Light. If you have Galley, you have all the time in the world, then yes, run Lasting Impression. And if you're sitting there thinking, wait, you're telling me to craft both with enhanced Lasting Impression and enhanced Explosive Light? No. Do not craft enhanced Explosive Light or Lasting Impression. It's not worth it. Now, I mentioned earlier that I would talk about why this rocket is one of the best rockets in the game currently. And well, it's really because of 3 things. Number 1, it can be crafted, so you don't have to deal with any BS RNG. Everyone can get it, everyone can get the perfect roll. Number 2, it's stasis, meaning it can be paired with a stasis subclass plus Font of Might, which if you're unaware what Font of Might does, well, upon picking up an elemental well that matches your subclass type will increase weapon damage when that weapon's element matches your subclass type. And then finally, Supreme Wellmaker, which on super activation spawns stasis wells. You can kind of see where I'm going at with this. Stasis weapon plus stasis subclass plus Supreme Wellmaker plus Font of Might equals big damage. And finally, number 3, it has tracking, and who doesn't love track? Now, because this video is getting way too long for my liking, I'm going to quickly go over how to properly weapon swap. Witch Queen, a lot of new, a lot of returning players. People are saying, hey, you know, I'm weapon swapping. You're like, hey, what the heck is weapon swapping? Well, I'm going to show you, okay? Step 1, fire your rocket. Step 2, switch to Izanagi's Burden. Step 3, shoot your Izanagi's Burden. Make sure it's, you know, it's like already been reloaded with a ×4 honed edge before even starting any of this. Step 4, reload a ×4 honed edge shot. And step 5, switch back to your rocket and fire. Then just rinse and repeat. It might sound hard at first, but trust me, once you get it down, it's really easy to execute, even during like, you know, intense damage phases. If you're looking to practice, I recommend going to the Enclave and down to the firing range. You get like unlimited ammo down there, so you can just sit down there, practice your swapping until you get it down. But that is Palmyra-B, one of the best rockets in the game currently. Let me know down below what you think about this weapon. Do you think that there is a definitive better column 4 perk? I've seen people argue lasting. I've seen people argue explosive light. In reality, I think you should have both because each perk is so situational and can aid you in, well, different situations. But let me know. With all that being said, if you enjoyed the video, then feel free to drop a like and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.